So I've now had the opportunity to watch the first episode of Series 2 of House of the Dragon twice, and I wanted to make a video that's a little bit different to what I normally do on this channel, and that's discuss all the elements that I loved about this episode. Now, if you're looking for a non-spoiler review of this episode, then there's one on the channel that's already out, the link to which can be found either at the top here or in the description box below. If you're a fan of House of the Dragon, please do consider liking and subscribing to this channel, as this will be a topic that I'll be covering repeatedly over the next 8 weeks. Without further ado, let's get into my thoughts about this episode. Spoilers ahead, obviously. I really thoroughly enjoyed this episode and enjoyed it just as much the second time round as I did the first. It made me appreciate it all the more actually, as I was able to see how well the episode's writing foreshadows events. For instance, the confusion between Prince Jaehaerys and his sister is foreshadowed when Aegon comes looking for him and has to check to see if it's Jaehaerys or his sister in the nursery. Likewise, in that scene, Aelena Targaryen's mention of her fear of rats foreshadows how later in the episode it's a rat catcher that leads Daemon's hired assassin and member of the City Watch to find and kill Aemond. That whole ending was a shocking moment, and having that twist of the assassin killing Jaehaerys instead of Aemond will likely massively influence many of the characters in this show. This episode showcases that Aegon has a deep affection for his son, and upon his murder, it seems that this will likely start to alter Aegon's character. Speaking of Aegon, in this episode he seems a little bit softer. The Aegon of Season 1 was impulsive, vile and cruel, and whilst he's not lost his impulsiveness, he seems a tad more good-natured. Like in the scene where he has his audience with the common folk and he seems keen to help them. Otto's lecturing during this showcases that Aegon is a naive ruler. However, he seems to want to be a good king to his people. But now that his son has been murdered, I'm curious to see the effects this will have on his character. Speaking of this whole brutal murder plot, this episode seems to showcase Daemon's absolute desperation to act. He's full of rage over everything that's happened, and it's slowly bubbling away under the surface, which is portrayed excellently by Matt Smith. I read somewhere that the writers have suggested that this season is really going to take Daemon to new places in terms of his character arc, and I'm honestly very excited for that. The writers have the ability, as does Matt Smith, to do something really epic with this, and I'll be interested to see his reaction to the murder of Jaehaerys, as this wasn't what he intended, as Rhaenyra wanted Aemond. And that's another detail too. She said want, not kill. That detail may be me misinterpreting, or perhaps she wants him but doesn't want him dead just yet, or dead at all for that matter. How will she react to the way that events went down at the end of episode 1? The funeral sequence for Lucerys was also done very well. It was very pretty from a cinematography perspective, with lovely lighting that set the mood for it so well. And I like how in the edit, they lined up the scenes of Alicent lighting the candles for those that she loves, and the scene of Rhaenyra at the funeral. It's also notable that Alicent lights a candle for Lucerys, which symbolises a key theme being set up in this season, which is also discussed by Aemond to Sir Criston Cole, and that's that Alicent has a love for her enemy, this now being Rhaenyra, and I'll be interested to see the effects of this as the season progresses. Speaking of Rhaenyra, I like how they actually took this episode to see her grieve, and accept that Lucerys is actually dead. The scene on the beach where she finds the dragon wing and Lucerys' cloak is spot on for this, and again is an example of some great writing and performance by Emma Darcy. There's also some other interesting plot beats set up, like the rivalry growing between Larys Strong and Otto Hightower. Larys clearly wants the role of Hand, and he's already demonstrated his ability to manipulate others, so I'm curious to see how that turns out. It was also very cool to see Winterfell and the North again, albeit briefly, and it made me feel very nostalgic for the first time that I ever watched Game of Thrones, and it was fun to see what it was all like in the era of the House of the Dragon. The subtle references to what's beyond the wall and the notion that winter is coming were perfect and felt perfectly tonally in line to exactly how they were in Game of Thrones. And that deep sense of dread over what's beyond the wall looming over this world is one of my favourite elements of Game of Thrones, and it was really nice to see it pop up here as well. Seeing Cragen Stark, which was also very fun, He was played perfectly by Tom Taylor and absolutely felt like an ancestor to Sean Bean's Ned Stark from season 1 of Game of Thrones. Overall, then, this was, for me, an absolute blast of an episode. I'm so happy to be able to step back into this world and be immersed in it once again. Season 2 is shaping up to be just as, if not perhaps even stronger, than Season 1. So I'm very excited to see where it goes. So that was my take on Season 2, Episode 1 of House of the Dragon. If you like this video, then please consider giving it a like. If this does well, I might make this a weekly thing for each episode that releases. And please do feel free to comment any of your thoughts or theories about this season. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. And in the words of the Night's Watch, in terms of this video, now your watch has ended.